We're just down the street from where it all began many years ago, where Steve and I met and dated and worked and lived and got married, had our reception, all those great things. And we're about to take a tour. I'll tell you, the landscape has certainly changed. I can't get over just the amount of high-rises in this area that were not here before. Incredible. Looking forward to seeing the old stomping grounds. Before we start the tour, I want to share with you a little bit of history regarding CFB Toronto. Canadian Forces Base Toronto was first established as a Royal Canadian Air Force station in 1947 on land surrounding the de Havilland Aircraft of Canada in Downs View, Ontario. Some of the units in the earlier days of the RCAF station were the 14 Wing Headquarters, Number 14 Movement Control Detachment, and the Defense Research Medical Laboratories. Residential homes were built for station personnel, known in military circles as Permanent Married Quarters, or PMQs. To prevent fraternization between the troops and the officers, PMQs were located at either end of the non-operational side of the station. William Baker Park, on the north side, was designated for married commissioned officers. 81 single-family homes were built over 28 years, beginning in 1953, on Robert Woodland Crescent and John Drury Drive. Stanley Green Park, on the south side, were for non-commissioned members. There were 26 brick row houses containing 4 units each. Both PMQs were fenced off and restricted to military personnel. There was also off-base housing on Sunfield Road and Shepherd Avenue, just west of Keele Street. These were called Low Development Housing, or LDHs, but also known amongst the rank and file as local dog houses. In 1968, the RCAF station was renamed CFB Toronto, and its support role was expanded to include all regular force, reserve, and cadet units for the Army, Navy, and Air Force in the Toronto area. Central Militia Area Headquarters, or CMA, moved to Downs View in 1971. The Defense Research Establishment merged with the CF Institute of Environmental Medicine that same year to form DCIEM, which stands for the Defense and Civil Institute for Environmental Medicine. In 1990, a restructuring of the armed forces resulted in the base being transferred from Air Command to the Army's Mobile Command. Land Force Central Area Headquarters, or LFCA, was formed at Downs View the same year as part of the new regional command structure for the Army, replacing CMA, which was disbanded. The Army's Toronto District Headquarters moved to Downs View in 1994 from the Avenue Road Detachment. This new location was short-lived because it was disbanded in March 1997. It was replaced by the 32nd Canadian Brigade Group Headquarters. By 1994, CFB Toronto's operational importance was declining. The city had grown up around the base, and there was little interest in maintaining a full-sized operation. Combined with the desire of local politicians to acquire some of the land for development, CFB Toronto's future was in question. Plans were made to reduce it to a detachment, but this was later changed to an outright closure. CFB Toronto and the Supply Depot closed on the 1st of April, 1996. LFCA had moved to another location in 1994. Canada Lands Corporation assumed control of the property and began the process of its disposal. Park Downsview Park Incorporated was established in 1998 as the Crown Corporation tasked with developing the former base as an urban park. 11 years later, the Canadian Forces Housing Authority began the process of disposing of all the military housing in Toronto, starting with the demolition of the Stanley Green Park homes that were damaged by the explosion from the nearby Sunrise propane storage facility in August 2008. The remaining homes were demolished in 2012. The William Baker Park homes were vacated around the same time and were demolished in 2014. Stanley Green Park and the LDHs were redeveloped into a high-end townhouse condominium community. There were plans for a new residential development on the William Baker Park land, but construction has not yet begun. The abandoned roads now serve as walking paths through the existing woodlot that once surrounded these PMQs. The barracks and messes where single personnel lived and dined, and the administrative buildings, except for the base headquarters, have all been demolished. The former Supply Depot building is currently used as a film studio, a venue for the Toronto Roller Derby, the Downsview Merchant Market, a church, and various other community initiatives. The CFB headquarters building is now the headquarters for the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. The former military police guard house was occupied for several years by the Toronto Wildlife Centre, but was demolished around 2009. In July 2002, the Denison Armory, formerly located on Dufferin Street, south of the airfield, moved to the rebuilt armory located on Yukon Lane. It now houses the 4th Canadian Division, formerly LFCA, Joint Task Force Central, 32nd Canadian Brigade Group, and several reserve and cadet units of the brigade. The old Denison Armory was demolished and replaced by a Costco store. Now that you have a feel for what was and what is, let's backtrack a bit so that you can see where Steve and I met, lived, worked, married, and had our wedding reception. It felt very strange driving through the park and seeing, or not seeing, places for which we spent our time while working and living there. I arrived at CFB Toronto after completing all my required courses in logistics and basic military training. My first posting was to the Supply Depot. This place is huge. The main warehouse is just over 1/4 mile long and 1/8 mile wide, and it covers 18.5 acres of land. It had 760,000 square feet of usable storage space and permitted a stackable height of 19 feet. To get around easily, golf carts and bicycles were used because it was a heck of a long walk from one end to the other. Grid references were used on the ceiling to indicate location. I did not go into the warehouse very often, but when I did, having the grid points sure prevented me from getting lost. I spent most of my day in the annex. I had a huge office and lots of responsibilities. It was really overwhelming as my first job as an inexperienced junior officer. Talk about baptism by fire. After a year working as the Personnel Administration and Training Officer, I was posted in order to widen my logistics experience, but not far, because the military had already paid to move me here. So I ended up at Base Supply, which was right across the street. There were different warehouses spread out over the entire base, and as my experience grew, I was responsible for more and more of them. Each were referred to as stores. There were technical stores, general stores, clothing stores, food stores, furniture store. Well, you get the point.
I first laid eyes on the love of my life while sitting at the live-in table in the dining room of the officers' mess. The first thing I noticed about him, besides his gorgeous blue eyes, was his manners. He was exceedingly kind to the waitstaff and always saying please and thank you. He shattered my opinion of army officers. I mistakenly thought they all were rude and obnoxious. This young army officer worked at various places on the base. He was a staff officer at CMA and then worked on a special project in the pay office. He had and still has a unique ability to work outside of his area of expertise. He even worked with the experimental diving unit at DCIEM. They let him participate in a couple of experimental dives in the hyperbaric chambers. How cool is that? This handsome blue-eyed army officer lived down the hall from me when we lived in the single officers' quarters.
Wow, things have changed dramatically since we lived here. This is definitely the same parking lot, but everything else has changed completely. Like we would walk up here, approximately, it's hard to tell, and then there was a building here, entrance, and yeah, wow. And now it's a playground. That is pretty cool. In fact, yes, you know what? I see the pathway that used to be, I think, maybe, it's hard to say. But there was a sidewalk that went up to the mess where we ate. I'm pretty sure this was it. It looks like it. And then, yeah, because I remember going up the hill. You had to go up the hill. And over there is where the base headquarters was. And then, we'll take a walk over there later. But I just want to kind of go up this area for now. So there was a parking lot, and then the mess was like right there. And it's not there anymore. It's gone. So much of our beginnings is gone. Well, at least we're still here. That's a good thing. And after a night of, you know, hanging out at the mess, having some drinks, we just kind of roll down the hill. Not really.
Our barracks mates often hung out while we were off duty. We attended Blue Jay games, went clubbing at the Big Bop, joined the curling league and the rifle club, hung out at the gym, or attended the many social events at the officers' mess. Soon our friendship developed into something more serious, and we began planning our wedding.
This was where we got married. Isn't it a lovely chapel? It's not even there.
And had our wedding reception at the mess. We had some good times while living and working at CFB Toronto. The base and the buildings may be gone or replaced, but our love for one another remains, and we are still together today. I hope you enjoyed this walk down memory lane in the associated history of CFB Toronto. Since I don't make these videos on a regular basis, well, not as fast as I would like, it would be helpful for you to like and subscribe to the channel so that you will be notified when a new video is released. One more note, I must thank Bruce Forsyth for the research he did on the base's present and past history. I put a link in the description to his website if you want to find out more about this base and others like it. Thanks for watching. This is Andrea from A is for Adventure.